Hello, I'm Brittany. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm kind of getting back to my roots of this channel where I did a lot of bookish content when I first started. So kind of along the same lines of like the book club that I did with my sisters. I'm going to be doing this with my sisters, but it is inspired by How to Train Your Gavin, where he read Agatha Christie and he tries to solve it before the detective does, and that just sounded like so much fun. And so I decided for the month of October, well, for the rest of the month of October, because it's like the 10th right now, me and my sisters will be reading a book together, and then periodically we'll be meeting and kind of discussing the case and trying to figure it out. The Inspector and Mrs. Jeffries by Emily Brightwell is the book that we are going to be reading. So the plan is we'll read 3 chapters and then we'll meet up and talk about it, and then save the last 2 chapters and the epilogue for on Halloween night, where we'll find out together who did it and all of that. Yeah. Okay. I'll make my way over to my murder board. I have listed the victim. I have a list of suspects. And then reasons why I suspect him. My number 1 suspect is Dr. Hightower. Mainly because he was so rude. And he knows a lot about the household. And I know he's like, oh, he used to brag about the household. But he knows a lot and he seems cantankerous. Plus he was at the tea party where they discovered the poison mushrooms. So I also kind of have a theory. But like, it's literally, there is nothing other than what Mrs. Crookshanks said. Because she said that he liked to eavesdrop. And so as a potential motive, I was like, well, what if he was a blackmailer? Because like, blackmailers, their trade is secrets. So of course they would eavesdrop and want to know everyone's secrets so they could blackmail them. It's obviously just an idea on why he might have been murdered. So, yeah. That is an unsubstantiated theory at the moment. What about you?
What about me to what you said?
What are your theories, thoughts, opinions? Who's your biggest suspect right now?
I don't know about a biggest suspect, but I'm definitely suspicious of the neighbor, Mrs. Crookshanks, because people who are very, like, she said a lot of information that was very helpful, and not all of it. Okay, they did, the only thing that was substantiated or backed up by another person saying was that his staff didn't like him. That was backed up by another person saying that. So a lot of her information was, like, overly helpful people I find suspicious and giving out a lot of information. And plus, as soon as she was out there on the thing, she was like, who the heck are you?
That is true.
So, I'm very suspicious of her behavior. Whether or not she's a murderer, I'm not quite sure at this moment, but I definitely am suspicious of her. And also, I'm super suspicious of that girl, Miss Canterbury. The one that is a footman who went and got the book for her to read about mushrooms. I can't remember his name. It's a W or something. And he's all like waiting in the front yard for her to walk by, and he's like the flirt guy.
I completely do not recall that.
They mentioned her like too many times to be like, that's not, like, like, why are we talking about this person whom nobody's actually met? She hasn't been in a scene. She hasn't, there she walks by. She's only been mentioned. So I'm suspicious of that. I think the motive might be, like a blackmail or, like an affair, which could partially be part of the blackmail, and obviously involving her.
I don't really remember the footman getting her a book. I don't remember that.
When she's like, I gotta learn more about mushrooms.
No, I don't recall that.
It wasn't like, it's before.
It's weird because, like, I literally, because I have the book on tape, so I had my headphones on, and I was literally standing in front of this the whole time, just jotting stuff down. So that's weird that I missed that. Okay, I'll have to go back and look.
I'm with you, Brittany. I have no idea what Maria is talking about at all. So I believe that the murderer has yet to be introduced to us at this point, because I feel like, first of all, poison, I'm going to go with the stereotype here. Usually it's a woman, because that's the kind of killing that women do, is poison. So I'm guessing, based on this, I was thinking kind of along the lines of an affair or some sort of secret, but with Ms. Leslie and Dr. Hightower, because they were the ones that he was eavesdropping on. But we haven't met Miss Leslie yet, and I'm waiting to kind of, meet the character before making accusations, you know what I mean? We need the witnesses to witness what they witnessed. Because all the people at the party... My list of things that I need to look for in the next chapter are the questions that need to be answered, which is who stands to gain the most by his dying? Does he have any debts or enemies? And then, like, the guests at the party are highly suspect. Obviously, the ones that left already are less suspicious, but that doesn't mean they weren't involved. So, we've got a lot of information here. And I don't think that we have enough to accuse anyone yet. But I also think Maria might have read ahead, because I am not sure what she's talking about. So,
let's see, I'm looking now.
Still not ringing any bells.
Nope. I'm looking it up now. Hold on.
Okay, and now I know what you're talking about. I thought you were talking about outside of Dr. Bartholomew Stockham's house. You were saying someone was hanging about one of his workers. But you're talking about one of the inspector's housekeeper guy, or footmen's. See, I didn't write down any of their his household staff's names, because I figured they were not a part of the case. Because it's a series, I figured they just gave more information about each character because they will be reoccurring. And that's why I think it was mentioned so many times, because it's a series, so they're setting up the base characters. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally not following the right line of thinking, but I'm just like, yeah, the household of the inspector is completely like, all I'm doing is gathering the information that they bring and not anything about them as part of the case. because I don't want to be overcrowded with facts. So I don't have any of their names down or anything like that.
Yeah, I really think that when you mention a person's name multiple times...
Yeah, but she's not the one who asked for the book.
No, I'm not saying she did. I'm saying he got the book, and he's the one who's gawking over her.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah. So I'm like, well, apparently she's extremely attractive. So.
But the thing is that household acquainted with our victim's household?
It doesn't really matter because we haven't met her yet. But I find it strange how much she's been mentioned in the short amount of time that we've been reading the book.
Yeah.
So I find it suspicious. Like, I'm just saying.
I mean, I guess it's like me being like, oh, he likes to snoop. He must be a blackmailer kind of a moment. But honestly, I think the hardest part is we're only 3 chapters in. So I feel like we literally only like, oh, there's a murder? Okay, let's roll up our sleeves and get to it.
Right.
That's where we're at. So we don't have, we have a cause of death. He was poisoned by a mushroom. But that's all we've got, really. And other than he seems to have not been overly liked. Or at least that's my impression.
Right.
I guess, plus the little tidbit, going back to, women like to use mushrooms. Poison. And it's true. But not just women. And I don't...
No, the statistics about poisonings is higher for women. So I honestly, when you said that, I already, said it in my head. So I'm like, check, don't have to say it.
Yeah.
But I was definitely on that same page there.
For me, yes, poison. But I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that he had mushroom soup, the day he died. And the
staff did too.
The staff did too.
But he shouldn't have eaten it because he ate something different. And
the fact that, who was it that said it? Where, in the pantry, the other mushrooms were cleaned and taken care of, and the poisoned ones, or the poisonous mushrooms, weren't.
Like they're freshly picked.
So, to me, on one hand, it being in the kitchen, the cook is probably a woman, considering the time period. Women were more cooks in household service. But the fact that it wasn't...
wouldn't really think to wash the dirt off.
Yes, a man wouldn't think to wash the dirt off, or to cut it, or, take care of it like the other ones were. So... I think it's multi-layered, and I think that it is very possible, your theory about a possible affair, so it could be a man and a woman, but honestly, we don't have the full cast of characters. Half of the people that I have on my suspect list, we haven't even met yet, and I'm just putting them on there.
All the people at the party we haven't met.
Yeah.
Except for the doctor.
And mostly, the biggest reason why he's on the top of my list is he found the body, and he was so rude to the inspector. Literally, I know that's nothing substantial. He's a doctor, and doctors are arrogant.
And he and the other doctor already had a... So yes, it's suspicious why he would poke in unless they literally go, I don't like you so much, I'm gonna make your life miserable, you go back by, we'll just go back and forth.
He probably came over to rub something in, or maybe, I don't know, kind of like the inspector and that other inspector.
What do you think that residue on top of the cabinet, whatever thing,
and the cork,
a bigger vial, and it appears that he was trying to give himself an antidote to the poison because he knew he was poisoned.
Yeah. I would like to know times. That's one question I have. When did the Dr. Hightower come? when did the victim die? Because I feel like that will, because how do we know he wasn't alive when the doctor came? He could have come, he was alive, they talk, he poisoned him, watched him die, and then was like, hey police, there's a dead body here. You know, like, we don't know. We need, time-wise, we need to know, talking to whoever runs that doctor's surgery or whatever, whoever handles his schedule needs to be talked to get his alibi and all of that stuff.
Yeah. I find it interesting, the fact that, well, obviously she mentions it, and she's like, it's not a dust, but it's, you know, whatever. But it's on top of a cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know, like, she didn't necessarily say dimensions of this cabinet, but I'm envisioning something kind of tall.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, what the heck would be spilled on top of that and why?
I wasn't going to say anything, but you guys were kind of alluding to all of that, but I'm waiting to see, because I don't think the autopsy was conclusive enough, because they didn't actually cut into the body, he doesn't think, and it didn't say, but he was like, oh, it doesn't look like they would have to do that because you saw the mushrooms and whatever. And she's like, hold up, what? They didn't actually perform the autopsy? And he's like, well, they might not have. They might have just, like, used that and gone, that matches up with what we see here. We're good. So I'm feeling like the mushrooms are the red herring, not the vial. The vial and the particles and the cork, I believe, are the poison. And we will discover later that the mushrooms were planted as a way of keeping people from looking and as of a way to frame someone at the party. So I'm feeling like it's less likely going to be someone that was there or someone that didn't look like they had a motive at that moment, or that drew attention maybe to the mushrooms so that other people could be incriminated. So, you know, Mrs. Crookshanks definitely would fit into that a little bit. But we don't know yet. And the back door was open, and her house has a back door right there, drawing access. I don't know. I'm leaning towards that a little bit too, but we'll see. I just don't feel like the investigative work is at the point where we can figure anything out, because I feel like it's just not thorough. And I'm like freaking out. And I agree with Brittany about the timeline thing, because I have this whole like, where is it? I don't even have a when sticker because there isn't really times. We only know that the murder occurred on a Wednesday afternoon around lunchtime, possibly because he did have his food out from lunchtime. He had his lamb and his wine and his soup out. But all of the employees also had the soup, but they didn't have the lamb or the wine. So I think that his wine was poisoned with whatever was in that vial. So this is just me being purely speculative. That's why I wasn't even going to say anything, because it's not facts. All I was doing was talking about facts before, and now I'm like, this is my theories and totally based off of very little, but my mind kind of fills in blanks when I don't have answers. So hopefully that doesn't bite me in the butt later, because I'm only writing down the facts.
I would say my top suspect is still Dr. Hightower, and I think it's possibly him and Mrs. Leslie. I found it so stinking weird, that whole dynamic. He acts like he's the man of the house, but isn't he like married?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't get it. He's definitely very protective of Mrs. Leslie, and the maid clearly takes orders from him. So he's clearly in some kind of position of authority there. It's just weird to me. And what's this thing about the key?
Oh, but no, I meant this. But, you know.
I know, it's like, gaslight much? Holy cow.
Ugh.
Like, girl, you freaked out a little too. Like I don't really know much servants to be like very bold enough to do that, and then you freak out, and then you go, oh no, sir, no, you mistake. You know,
Yeah.
what I meant was completely different.
Plus, she got mad at the inspector for making her mistress faint, but I'm like, girl,
What you
said is what
you said was the reaction.
yeah, she was fainting because of what you were doing. All you had to do was zip it.
It's like, girl, I don't understand you. That didn't make any sense.
Literally.
Like, oh, I'm gonna say all these things that, no, you shouldn't do this because you shouldn't get in trouble for him. And then she's freaking out because the things that she's saying, and then she's going, you, like, what? That really doesn't make sense. A lot of the behavior is very confusing, and I don't think it's realistic.
No.
So I'm really having a hard time with these characters. I'm understanding them because it is, in my opinion, not realistic.
Yeah. That, and then, like, the butler, when Mrs. Jeffries comes to give the inspector his watch back, her excuse, he comes to the door drunk, and then she somehow gets him to start talking.
And then she
he's
opens the door, and he opens the door to her, and is immediately suspicious about her gossiping. And then he's like, I'm gonna freely say all this. And then she actually asks a question as like she's interested in what he has to say. Then he's like, oh, I'm suspicious of you. Now I'm gonna be closed lips. It's like, what?
We want to come up and cuddle?
And I don't think he was drunk.
Okay, he had the smell of alcohol on his breath.
Yeah, and you know how easy to get is to smell alcohol on your breath without being drunk.
I suppose that's true. I just...
I don't think that he was drunk.
But either way, in the middle of the day, having a drink when you're on duty, even if, like... I guess, like, technically his master is dead, but, like... I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very good idea to me. Oh, like, what does he have on her? It almost makes me wonder if there's maybe not like a romantic relationship between the doctor and Mrs. Leslie, but maybe like some kind of familial tie that they can't speak of, like, or something. I don't know. It's just
family?
Yeah, like they're somehow related to each other, but they can't say how they're related or be open about it because there's some kind of secret attached to it or something. I don't know. That's the only thing, like, in my mind that I can, like, if they are related and they don't tell people. But, like, he has way too much say in that household. Plus, the way he was trying to tell the inspector how to conduct his investigation.
Wait, now we're talking about the other doctor.
Dr. Hightower.
So
my suspect.
You're talking about... I thought you said that they were in a relationship. Now you're saying that they're not?
I'm saying they are in a relationship. I'm just not entirely sure it's a romantic one. I don't know. Maybe it is. But I don't know.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a protective brother.
No, but like,
So.
I'm not saying brother, but like, I don't know. It just seems very weird. And he's married. So, I mean, obviously, if they were in a relationship, that would be a secret. But
they're not being very discreet about it.
Yes. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. I feel like certain things are like in your face.
Obvious.
Yeah, so I'm like, is it a red herring? Like, I don't know. Like, but like you said, there are certain things that characters do that just doesn't seem all that realistic.
It's very,
so I'm like, is it the writing?
It's very confusing because it's like super descriptive, but also like, super vague at the exact same time.
Yeah.
And so then you go, okay, why are we getting this full description and then barely getting that?
Yeah.
which sometimes we feel more necessary than others.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely, well, I don't know if I find it suspicious to think he's the murderer, but he's like, are you sure it was the mushroom?
Yeah. Which makes me go, okay, so either he knows more or he saw something that made him think it wouldn't be that. So that makes me suspicious.
To actually question it verbally out loud to the detective
Yeah.
or the inspector is like, dude, if you did it, you wouldn't want to bring attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
But
But if he didn't do it, then why couldn't he, as a professional, be like, oh, because ... I saw this. I noticed this. In my professional opinion, this gave me this indication. You know, like, if he really was above board and he had nothing to hide, why wouldn't he be forthcoming about something like that? You know?
I don't know how much information he would be able to glean from the evidence, if he was innocent, from the evidence at the time, to go, oh, he was definitely poisoned, and to know what kind of poisoning, other than, you know, I guess observations from the body, which, yes, then he could openly go, well, my personal opinion is this, but it is also, I don't know, as if he were the murderer, why would he go, oh, you sure it's the mushroom? Like, let me just give you a little bit of doubt so that you can actually further look into that. Are you sure, like, he did a thorough autopsy? Like, are you wanting it? Why would he want them to dig deeper?
Oh, that was a lot. Okay, I don't even know where to jump in other than just like, I agree that it doesn't make sense for Dr. Hightower to draw attention to the fact that the autopsy was inconclusive because it wasn't done properly. But how would he know it was not done properly? And if there was a different poison beside the mushrooms, like, is it because, like, my only thought is, does Ipecac actually work for mushrooms, or is it a different poison? And if that was why he thought that, why didn't he just say that? I just feel really frustrated by all the interviews, because I agree, there's so much gray areas and lack of information, and it's like, can't you even ask a simple question like, I don't know, why did you get in a fight with Dr. Hightower, or with Dr. Stolcom, you know, to Effie the cook? Like, what was your fight about? Because that seems kind of an important detail. But he doesn't even ask about the fight. He's just like, you fought with him, so you're a suspect. Did you kill him? And she's like, no, I did it. And we obviously don't think she did it, but he didn't even ask why they were fighting. And I'm just feeling like, I don't know. This doctor is not a very liked person. He is stingy, and I feel like this is all going to come back to money, because there seems to be a lot, like, money seems to be very important to him. Like, even changing his will 2 weeks ago was highly sus, right? Like, first of all, what brought that on? And also to change it to donating to the hospital for a wing with a statue of himself instead of giving to his nephew. Like, how pompous. Like, he is so full of himself. And I just feel like the arrogance and the overall unlikability, I don't know. I feel like he's probably either money related or maybe blackmailing a lot of people. Like, there are a lot of people. I think even maybe like his cook, I feel like, because why else would she leave that appointment for the Duke, I think it was. There was just a lot of things brought up where it felt really sus, and the only thing I could think of would be he's blackmailing them. And, you know, the relationship of Dr. Hightower and Mrs. Leslie could be one of those things, but I think Brittany's right that there's something else going on, too. Excuse me. So, I don't know. I feel like these 3 chapters that we just did were very inconclusive, and I filled a whole page of notes, but I still feel like not really any closer to the murderer, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm sure you guys feel the same way, because right now we're all like, like, I don't know. The Colonel doesn't feel like a suspect, or at least not one of my top suspects right now, but maybe he's too helpful. Maybe he has something that if it got out, he would lose his appointment from the Queen, so he wanted to hush up the doctor before his appointment was made public, and he, you know, possibly could have lost it. You know, that would be a motive, right? So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. We only have, let's see, we're on 7, 8, 9. We only have 5 more chapters left, I think. So I'm sure a lot's gonna happen in the next 3 chapters, but I don't know. I'm looking at my board to see if I missed anything. Okay, I'll just let you talk.
But yeah, it's hard because exactly, he could literally have everything or have something on all of my suspects, which is why, especially because the biggest reason why I left the Colonel on is because he was at the party, but also he was one of the people that our victim left a card at the morning the day he died, and so I felt like there was a reason for it, so that's why I have him on my suspect. But he's not too high, but he is on it. I do agree that he would have a motive for wanting to keep anything hush hush because, you know, any whiff of a scandal, and they would not have him at a post because, you know, it's political and it's understandable. So yeah, so he would definitely have a motive. It's hard because so many people have motives. I had a thought that maybe sure, he might have something on the cook. Maybe he because she is such a good cook, what if he was one of her, or she was one of his informants or something? I don't know, but that doesn't make sense either because he has her working for him now. But clearly, the way the butler reacted isn't... He has to have some kind of informants in different places. Kind of like Mrs. Jeffries has in the cook at their place. Because the cook knows everything about everyone in London. So it very well could be that she also knew everything about everyone in London. And so he wanted her close so he could get any information on people.
They bring up that. Yeah, that is very suspicious. Why would she be in a great position, move to that one, and she doesn't like him?
Yeah. But also something that's frustrating me, not just the questions that aren't being asked, but the fact that exact times are not being put. Because look, okay.
Well, Brittany, we still don't even actually know the real type of death.
Yeah. But see, I'm trying to do a timeline, but I don't know the time. That's a guesstimate. That's like because I know it happened after lunch that the inspector goes, but like I don't know the exact time, and like there's a lot of missing space right here.
What I also am still curious about is the information that was actually more helpful was he interviewed the housekeeper who cleans the surgery, and she said that it was not that he was meticulous, so that it was very clean. So she's obsessed about the cork, but I'm like, girl, you forgot about the substance left. Okay.
And doesn't Ipecac cause you to vomit?
Yes, that's what Ipecac is. So if he like a dog would eat chocolate or whatever, you give him Ipecac or something else, and they throw it up and to get it out of the poison out of their stomach. So it's not helpful if the poison like it has to be a certain kind of poison. So if he's like, oh shoot, I ate poisonous mushrooms, and then he had the Ipecac, which do we even know for sure if it actually was Ipecac? I don't know. At this point you question everything, right?
Plus he might have a bottle of it, but like, was he able to have any? Obviously, because he's obviously not.
But there wasn't any evidence of him actually throwing up.
Yeah.
So, at least that we are aware of.
Plus, it would have to be a kind of poison that you can feel as it's working. Because not all poisons do.
Unless he knew who was poisoned.
Yeah.
What scenario would you know that you were being poisoned? Let's say the murderer is right in front of you.
True. And you know how murderers are in books anyway. They always have to explain, right? The villain moment.
Yeah, I agree. We're really far into the story and have not met the full cast of characters yet. You know what I mean? Like, when are we going to meet Mr. and Mrs. Eversole? When are we going to meet the Wickham sisters? When are we going to meet Joshua? When are we going to, finish interviewing all the rest of the staff? Because I feel like there's still some of them that haven't been even talked about yet. I don't know, maybe we did. I just felt like it wasn't a very big staff based on what let me see, what did it say? There was, I wrote it down somewhere, didn't I? Multiple, okay, it doesn't matter. Anyway, there's just a lot of holes that we still have a lot to fill. And so at this point, it could be anyone. And it could be nobody that we've met so far. Although that goes against my number one rule of crime solving. My rule is 9 times out of 10, the murderer is introduced within the first 3 chapters. So if that's the case, literally it's Mrs. Crookshanks or the footman. No, butler. Or Mr. Hightower. Because those are literally the only people we talked to in the first 3 chapters, it felt like. It's not really, but, It's like, we talked to the housekeeper. No, okay, housekeeper, 2 maids, a butler. Maybe we did talk to everybody. Okay, anyway, doesn't matter. But literally in the first chapter, all we talked to was Mr. Hightower and then Mrs. Crookshanks. So either this is against my rule and I'm wrong, or it's one of them. But I don't feel like it is one of them. So, we got a lot to learn in the next few chapters. This is gonna be... Yeah. Because I only have 3 pages of notes. That's not a lot. Considering we're on chapter 6, going into 7. And then my murder board is filling up. But I still feel like it's not very much information. I don't like Nanette. And I really don't like Mrs. Leslie because, like, how annoying are women that pass out in the first 5 minutes of talking to them. I mean, really. And it felt like so fake. Like she passed out just to shut her maid up. And also, what was the maid's deal? She was freaking out and you're like, whoa, girl, she wasn't even incriminating herself yet. And you started freaking out and she lied about the calling cards, not getting a calling card, which why? I don't know. And then the maid was like, you don't need to lie to protect Dr. Hightower. And then when Dr. Hightower's there, she's like, oh, I didn't say any of that. I don't know what you're talking about. So that was sus. But, like, I don't know. Why was it sus? It doesn't even make sense for her to freak out like that. Because we're not getting all the information. Because the stupid inspector's not asking any questions. He's just like, okay, so you don't think that Dr. Hightower's suspect anymore? I'm confused, but okay. You seem convincing. I don't know. The inspector's thought processes make my head hurt. And no, it's no wonder that Mrs. Jeffries feels the need to step in all the time because seriously, she has to think for him. That's what it feels like. Anyway, that's all I have to say, I think.
Honestly, yes, we were talking, like, this is not how we would conduct the investigation.
Does the man even realize he's a detective?
He's just like, murder's wrong, so, like, I don't like that I have to investigate
I
it.
hope this is over soon.
Yeah, I'm like, see, and that's the thing.
I mean, of course you hope it's over soon, but it's your job to make it over soon.
What I don't get is he's clearly, like, doesn't like murder, which obviously you shouldn't.
Why is he in this line of work?
Yes. Like,
just Mrs. Jeffries let him be fired, or
yes,
convince him that he should find
or you know what, she should, I know it's Victorian times, but, like, she should be the inspector.
No, see, what she's doing is very selfish. She's allowing him to believe that he actually knows what he's doing, and so she can work vicariously through him to fulfill her selfish desires.
Which I guess now I'm kind of like, I kind of almost want the other detective to figure it out, because I really feel like him bumbling things can do more harm than Mrs. Jeffries whispering in his ear can do good.
Why would the other guy bumble things?
No, I'm not saying the other guy's mumbling things. I'm saying I want him to figure out that it's really Mrs. Jeffries that is solving all of the inspector's things, because I think that the inspector bumbling things can do more harm than Mrs. Jeffries whispering in his ear can do good. Yes. I also agree with you about Mrs. Leslie. I also did not like her, mostly because of the inspector's reaction to her, where he's like, she is the most beautiful woman I have ever met. And he literally, like, froze staring at her. Instantly, red flags were waving in my head. The sirens were going off. This is somebody I need to pay attention to.
I don't doubt there's something going on as far as an affair with her. That I don't doubt at all.
No.
What do we think about the butler poisoning the wine bottle because he brings him his wine every single day for his lunch? And then framing the cook. And the cork found is the cap from the poison, and the particles maybe are what the poison is, and he kind of made a mess. I don't know. And the key was the key to get into the poison cabinet. The cabinet that had the poison. No, that doesn't make sense. But the first part does. I don't know. I'm hypothesizing because my brain starts to try to fill in gaps with every possible scenario, which is how I figure things out sometimes. And then also, I'm like, maybe I should write a book because that's interesting. I don't know. Anyway. I just think that he left that morning, but he was there that morning because he set the wine out. And he knew he would drink it because he drinks wine every day with lunch. And then he would have access to the kitchen to frame the cook with the mushrooms. Anyway. It might not be him, but that's a possibility.
I wonder, though, how much motive, besides the money, the butler really does have. Because, yes, you set it up, and it does. In my opinion, it does work out for him to have poisoned the wine because he knows that he drinks it.
Plus, he'd be in the position to frame the cook, which I definitely feel like she's being framed.
Right. That one screams frame job.
Yeah.
So
That's why I was like, nope, it's not her.
like, nope, we know that. Because that's just super obvious.
Why?
But I'm not. I'm for it to be the butler. He's a 60-year-old, right? He's the one who was saying that would be harder for him to get a job after, and it's like, well, is 100 pounds even that much for him to be happy with? Not like the guy. But again, he probably doesn't have that high of a likelihood of him getting another job. Mm-hmm. So, is 100 pounds a big enough persuasion to think him more valuable dead than alive? I don't know.
Let me Google that. I want to see how much that would equate to in today's money. It would be 18 grand in today's money. Is that enough to kill somebody for? But yeah, workers those days did not get paid a lot. I would say the highest paid would be the butler and the cook, because those were the most valuable. And the housekeeper. They're the high-ranking ones. Housekeeper and the butler on the same level, and then you have the cook, and then the stableman would be on the same level, hierarchy-wise. So, yeah. So, I mean, like, that could seem like a fortune to them. And...
But did they know?
That's something I do want to know. I
really highly doubt that he would... First of all, the fact that he even would give them anything, he sounds like a super stingy. So at what point was he generous enough to consider them? And why? Mm-hmm. And why did he change his mind and try to change the will? And yeah, like, it's puzzling, the behavior, because he
the picture that we are being painted is he is not a very great guy. He doesn't like a lot of people. They don't like him, and he's okay with that. And so, if it really is $18,000 in our time, yeah, whatever, about that, why would he give him that much money? And why? I don't understand how, if he doesn't really,
Yeah, especially if he's a miser.
if he doesn't feed them well. He doesn't treat them well. So why would he treat them well after he dies?
Okay. I know it's not the next book club. I haven't read further into the book as of yet, but I wanted to do some research into death caps because I was curious. Let me pull it up. Okay, so I looked up whether Ipecac would help with expelling death cap. And according to Google, there is no antidote currently available. But people can be treated with fluids, activated charcoal, or other therapies. So potentially Ipecac could help, but as of right now in history, there's only one person that has ever survived eating death cap, and that's now. So back in Victorian times, that wasn't the case. I also looked up what are the symptoms of death cap poisoning. The symptoms of death cap mushroom poisoning generally occur 6 to 24 hours or more after ingestion of mushrooms and includes stomach pains, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Symptoms may subside for 1 to 2 days, giving a false impression of recovery. However, by this stage, the toxin will have already caused serious liver damage. So, if it was death cap, which there's a huge question mark next to that, he would have had to have it the day before. So that could potentially open up our window for the murder. But then again, we don't know if it really was, because the autopsy was not thorough. We do not know for sure. But I just thought that was interesting. So, information.
I just think it's really funny how you did all that research about the mushroom. Sorry, I just had NyQuil, so I might be a little like... Anyway, about the mushroom, and then it came out in the book, which is kind of interesting, because that's what I was thinking too. Like, I was like, I don't really like that you researched it personally, because I think we should only know as much as what's her name, Mrs. Jeffries knows personally, and learn it as she knows it. Obviously we can't control what we know outside of the book, like our personal knowledge going into it, but I just prefer or think we should probably not do research. But it did end up coming out in the book because of Mrs. Crookshanks talking about the fact that she knows that the mushroom wasn't the murder weapon because she's seen it kill people. I did think that we were a lot of what was going on feels like it's reestablishing, in my opinion. Remember what I said last time about how I think, what about if it was the butler who poisoned him with something besides the mushroom and poisoned his wine? Yeah, I feel like this is kind of re-upping my suspicions for the butler. A lot of what came out in these last 2 chapters. And Joshua, whoa. I mean, that was kind of unexpected, out of left field, that I did not see coming. Him being like his accomplice and stealing from his own uncle and really his own things because his uncle stole them from him in the first place. Like, whoa, crazy. And totally all of our suspicions about him being a blackmailer were like, bam, you were right the whole time. And we all were just like right on track with that. So far we are doing so good. And I think that these 3 chapters really just reestablished that for us, that we were on the right track. And so I'm feeling like we're still on the right track, or at least I am still feeling like it's the butler with all that came out in this. Yeah, that's where I'm at. So, gosh, I don't know if I have anything else to add right now, but you guys can go and then we'll go back and forth again.
Just to touch on why I looked it up about the mushrooms, I totally felt the same way you did, which is why I didn't do it. I wanted to as soon as it came up in the first chapter, but I'm like, no, I should know what she knows. And then she got that book about it, so she should have read about it.
She's never read I think she forgot that she even has the book.
Maybe.
Because there's been no mention of it since.
I don't know. But that was the only reason why I looked it up, because I'm like, okay, these are all these questions about the actual cause of death. Yeah.
Because was it common knowledge, or was it, more of a have to be educated and how accessible to this education,
Yeah, like educated like the colonel, or, But I will say I'm a bit frustrated with the late incoming of the nephew. Because, I totally did not see that coming either. And I will say that bumped the butler and the nephew up. Hightower and Mrs. Leslie are still on my list, just because they're being all suspicious. But I would say my top suspect right now is the butler and the nephew.
I don't really...
But mostly the butler.
I don't... Honestly, Hightower, I do not... He... I don't suspect him as much as Mrs. Leslie. Just because of, him being more... Well, investigating it.
Yeah.
I agree that this was the most helpful
Yes.
section of the book, and honestly,
The other ones could have been condensed.
The big, yeah, we had gleaned 2% information that we actually needed from the entire first half of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Versus this chapter was so much more down to the meat of it
Yeah.
and the actual information that we needed. I think that it has definitely painted the butler as more of a guilty person.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, his behavior definitely also goes along with it.
So what I put on my list of reasons why I suspect him is he's going to inherit money. He's acting suspicious. He has the opportunity to put stuff in the wine every day. Plus, he's buddy-buddy with the nephew. So his whole, but I'm not sure of getting a job, I think that kind of undoes that part, because he already has an in with the nephew. So he could very easily keep the job he has right there at that house with the nephew.
Do you think he's being blackmailed too?
I think that the butler was probably blackmailed by the victim too. Just like the cook. Which, when that whole storyline came out, I was just like, that is so heartbreaking.
I totally knew it.
You totally knew it?
Okay, I suspected her daughter because, she mentioned she had a young daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And, couldn't be there too, and so I suspected that whatever black male that got him to there, I'm like, it's her daughter.
Yeah.
It's not even her.
Plus, like, the way that he seems to have gotten the information was by abusing his position as
Oh my gosh.
a physician, giving people laudanum.
No wonder Hightower hates his guts.
Honestly, it is so wrong.
Because he's like, I'm a real professional doctor who actually cares about my patients, and he's this horrible person who uses them and then blackmails them and extorts them for extenuous amounts of money, and you're just like, wow, you have zero morals whatsoever.
Yes. Plus, I know that it is a slightly different time, but knowing what we know now about what laudanum does to people and how if they're on it if they have too much.
What was it?
Laudanum?
What's that?
It's the drug that he used. It's basically like.
I thought you said another word.
I'm probably saying it wrong, but the drug that he uses, it's very addictive. It's very if you give somebody too much for too long, it can actually do permanent damage to their brain. It can actually makes people very slow, lethargic. It makes it very hard for them to like think straight. The stuff that it does to people, I don't know how much they know about it in this time period, but clearly he knows enough to use it to get information. And so just knowing the stuff that it does to people, and it's a very, in my opinion, I do not like it. And the fact that people still subscribe it to this day in certain cases, I do not like, because I think the negative far outweigh the positive. And so when that came up, that was like major red flag to me, because it is just not a good drug.
That name does not ring a bell at all.
But overall, I definitely think we got the most information. But also, I kind of liked, but also kind of hated the dynamic of all of them going around being a detective.
It's
like y'all are not being stealthy.
We're gonna be stealthy and be like, we know. And then we're like, let's go, guys! We'll let the whole town know! Like,
Well, plus they're trying to keep it a secret that they get
I'm like,
involved.
oh my
and I'm
gosh,
like, y'all are wrecking balls right now.
you're all there at once. Like, there's zero. If somebody were to come in or walk by and see them, you would have no explanation whatsoever.
Yeah.
You,
Like, are y'all thinking?
like,
I feel like this scheme is gonna get blown out of the water. Like, how did they manage this far to not get caught? You know?
I don't know. They think they're way more clever than they actually are, though. If the author thinks that that would be a hindrance to the actual progression of the case, then she's going to just do the whole blind eye. Turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially with it being close to the end, close to the wrap up, and we getting so much information from this, I mean, could you imagine her going another way and going, oh, it really wasn't them, and they're going to tell all? If it's like, if they do tell all, then you know that they're innocent, and if they don't, then you know they're guilty. So, in that, we're going to find out pretty shortly with, you know, either way. And the autopsy, and
Yeah.
which, oh, good thing he was sick, so he was, I'm like, you're gonna, oh my gosh. I'm so done with you.
Yeah. I also feel like I think she's missing a little excuse that she could go with to, like, if she were to ever need to be like, okay, you're not going forward, but you need, the inspector needs to know about this, and it being Mrs. Jeffries to go to them. She has gone to the house on several occasions, and so I think it wouldn't be too far out of field where she's like, hey, they came to me because they felt more comfortable talking to me because I am of their class, and so this is what they told me. You know, kind of playing it in that way. I feel like that could work. And I'm just going purely from being a fan of Miss Marple, because that actually happens with her, where the genius of Miss Marple is that she is on the surface a nosy, gossipy old lady. And that's exactly what she is. And so a lot of people love talking to her about things. They love to gossip with her. And they are very comfortable telling her things. And so when it happens with Miss Marple, it feels very natural. Versus with Mrs. Jeffries, when she was trying to be all sly about it, I'm like, this feels weird.
No, she definitely seemed overly pushy.
Yeah.
And blatantly obvious that she wanted them to hurry up and rush it. And it
So
was like,
I like this.
oh, that really? Tell me more. Or, you know, like oh yeah, hurry up, man. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh.
That's why the way they're going about this with everybody there, I far more like, because it's not trying to be too clever. It's just, okay, come on, just give me the answers. And so I like this style of her getting
It definitely
information.
gotten more to the actual information versus the rest was just boring old fluff that you're sitting there going, so what did we learn from this 20-minute conversation?
Yeah.
Um,
Hence the last time we got together, we were just like, we have nothing new to talk about, so let's just rant about how frustrated we are.
Let her go.
Yeah, we probably should. Gosh.
I mean, I kind of agree with everything you said, so I don't know if I have anything else to add. I do think that these chapters were easier to sit down and actually listen to, like, not get distracted, because there was a lot of writing that I did. I filled up a page and a half with just these 3 chapters, so that's a lot. Actually, I think it was more than that. Just over a page and a half. Because it's like, I think that a lot of what they're going off of with showing their hand so much is almost like overshare, kind of like how Mrs. Jeffries made him think she knew where he was, even though they didn't know where he was, with Joshua, and her like getting them to tell more by oversharing and showing all the information they had, because as far as they know, they're keeping some of this stuff in the pocket. They really weren't, but they could have been. And so it was like making them think you know more than you actually do, so that they tell you more. And that worked for that. And they're relying heavily on the fact that we have more information on you, so you're not going to tell on us, kind of a thing. And that's even the same thing I feel like with Dr. Hightower. Like, the reason he didn't try to disband or disbar, no, that's lawyers, whatever the word is for doctors, try to get his doctor, for Dr. Stolcombe to not be a doctor anymore, ruin his reputation, whatever, is because Dr. Hightower had dirt on him. So he couldn't turn around and use his dirt on him without risking his dirt being dug up and revealed to people. So a lot of what's going on feels like people keeping secrets for other people because they're keeping their secrets. And secrets seem to be the currency right now. Like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like a lot of money actually is being blackmailed. Some of it is. But like with the cook, she's being blackmailed to work for him. And now he lost his bargaining chip of the blackmailing because the daughter told her husband, which is awesome. I love that part of the story because I'm like, yes. Because it's totally not her fault what happened to her. It's really sad, and I agree with Maria. I was suspicious of that, but I actually thought it was going to be her daughter was, like, she was in the position her daughter was in, like, her daughter was born because of that, not that her daughter was propositioned or whatever inappropriately. And became pregnant with the master's son or whatever it was. But so that's what I was expecting, but it was still the same line, but not the same person, you know. So it was her protecting her daughter versus her protecting how her daughter came, whatever. At least that's what I was thinking. But either way, it's still like, I love that she had her moment of like telling him that he has no power over her anymore. And so that fight, we finally get to find out what the fight was about. Was like, yes, finally information. And what it ended up being about was awesome, because she's like, I'm moving to Australia with my daughter, you can suck it, because you don't have power over me anymore, because she told her husband. So anyway, I think, yeah, Colonel Seward is like not really a suspect anymore. I do think there's gonna be more come out about him, but I don't think he did it. I'm really concerned about Nanette being nearby when this all went down. I'm wondering if there's something connected between Nanette and Miss Leslie, and you know, because that was the day of the murder, so I'm wondering if there might be more going on with that. I just really hope that this isn't going to be like a big ball of thread where it's like you start tugging on the loose ends and it comes undone, and then all of a sudden you find out that everybody's connected to the center. Because that's where it's feeling like it's set up to be. Which I know you said last time that you were hoping it wasn't going to be a Murder on the Orient Express situation, which is what that kind of is. But I'm feeling like it's might still be something kind of like that, where it's everybody's involved somehow, or everyone had something to gain, so they all teamed up. But I'm really hoping it's not that. But there's still possibility of that, because there's a lot of loose ends, and like Dr. Hightower talking about how he was gone and then he had guests over, and then it turns out he was walking by when it happened, or right before. I don't know. A lot of loose ends, but also a lot more information. So we have a way clearer timeline of how things went down than we did before. I mean, I don't have like actual times. I do have a few more than I did, but it's definitely becoming more of constructed in evidence rather than theory and hearsay, you know. So I like how the last 3 chapters have gone, and I'm curious to see how the rest is going to go.
I do agree. I do feel like it's setting up to be a Murder on the Orient Express type situation. And I think that's the part that I'm just like, ugh.
So I think, honestly, I don't know what form this drug or whatever he uses to the truth stuff. Mm-hmm. I think that's what the powder is. And the person who killed him used it on him as a form of revenge.
Oh, you know, that didn't occur to me, but that is actually, I'm kind of hoping it is that, because that would be poetic justice in a really twisted way. Murder is wrong, obviously, but like, just a little disclaimer, I do not condone murder. I'm curious to know why they keep highlighting the open window in the kitchen as well.
They're trying to establish that it was someone who, well, the butler.
Yeah. And I feel like it's another red herring of like, oh, it's somebody outside of the house.
But he asked for it to be left open and said that he would lock it behind them before leaving, mm-hmm. But all the other doors were locked. So by leaving it open gave him a way back in. But he wouldn't need a way back in if he slipped it in his wine.
Yeah.
Unless it was this stuff that he slipped into the wine to do the whole, because of course then he would want to be there to ask the questions.
Yeah.
But what is the actual death. I think is what really matters the most right now.
That's why I cannot wait to find out what happens when the inspector meets with the coroner and we actually get a proper post-mortem.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we probably should go back to Sarah, but
Yes.
I want to say this before I forget. I was so irritated when, who was it? Asked, it was the, Lilybell.
Mrs. Crushings?
She was like, so how many cases have you, that you made this, assumption on him dying of this, what's your experience? And he go, oh, none. And she like, oh my gosh. I was like, dude, like, I know.
There was a bit of mushroom in the soup, so obviously that's what killed him.
I'm just like, I understand the time
Yeah.
and people's brains were not as intelligent.
Plus, protocol, the fact that she was even there for this interview was, in my opinion, opinion,
Is that
that's highly...
professional opinion? Opinion.
Yes! Because I am a professional opinioner. I don't think that was appropriate.
I don't understand how she was even there, but
Yeah.
because she brought it forward and
Yeah.
I don't know.
They questioned him in front of her, which I would be like, just to save face, you could be like, okay, thank you for that information.
Okay, let's go over here. What the heck, doctor? It's a possibility that it's not actually the death, because I think we should know that.
Literally.
I mean, really, they don't even know if he was murdered or not, based on this information.
Other than the state of the body.
Like, they're... yeah, they don't know anything.
Yeah.
Okay, we probably...
Yeah, that was interesting because it was like she sought them out and was like, this isn't right, and then she was questioning them and they were getting irritated with her, but she was getting irritated with them because she's like, you guys are being dense, you don't know what you're talking about. I do. Listen to me, I have more expertise than you do in this case. And then the window thing was totally like, yeah, is this establishing, trying to make us question how someone got in and it's not someone in the household, or was it actually not someone in the household and someone getting in through the back window? Because, like, the thing I don't understand is if it was the butler, why did he leave the back door wide open when he left? Or was Joshua Stockholm leaving out the back door and left it open? And why? Were they in a hurry? Did someone come in and see them? Like, I feel like there's like something that is not being accounted for in the timeline of what's going on in the house, which is obvious because we still don't know, like, the murder scene, like, as it unfolds. But, like, did someone come in the window and then leave out the door? Did someone come in and catch them in the act of stealing? Did someone come in and catch them in the act of interviewing the uncle, trying to get information from him? Like Maria said with the laudanum for the doctor. Yeah, like, there's a lot of possibilities of a third person with the doctor and the butler and Stolcom, so fourth person, I guess, third person in the house besides the doctor. Anyway, so I feel like there's maybe a missing pawn in the game, but I don't think that they are the murderer. I still think it's the butler. I really do. Whether or not it's him and Joshua together conspiring, like maybe the butler poisoned him so Joshua could talk to him and find more dirt on him. Maybe Joshua was going to try to continue blackmailing the people that his uncle was blackmailing as a way of padding his own pockets. We don't know. I don't know if he would do that because I don't... But I feel like someone who's willing to stoop to the level of thieving like he is, he may very well continue his uncle's line of scum. Who knows? So that's kind of where my mind is at right now. I think when we find the black book and the key to unlock it, or the unlock its hiding place, there will be a lot of information revealed with that, or maybe finding who has it, because whoever has it has the power to blackmail all the people that he was blackmailing too. And because his key's missing too, so they could have both. So yeah, I don't know. That's all I have to say for this chapter, I think. Are you all as annoyed as I am? We'll just start with that.
I don't like this writer.
I would say that we could have done without a majority of the chapters. I feel like it could have easily been condensed. I feel like the first chapter and then maybe the last 3 or 4 chapters.
She was very fluffy in adding fluff. Mm-hmm. The 3 chapters before these ones were the most meat. So I would say they're better. They had a way better pace. And then all of a sudden we got to this one and it was like, oh, everything. Let's draw this out. And I'm like, I don't agree with the ending.
I was really annoyed. I was like, as soon as it ended, and I had to stop everything I was doing, and I was just like, I was so irritated. And then I thought back to everything, and I'm like, at least there was somewhat of a breadcrumbs. But not even. I'm torn between, okay, there was hints, and it's not like I didn't feel completely blindsided, because if it had been the nephew, I would have been furious about that. But I definitely feel like we weren't given enough. It really felt like the biggest reason why I've never liked Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes movies, because they were more interested in the plot twist shock factor, that they forgot the essence of why Sherlock Holmes is such a beloved character even today.
And all the action-packed scenes.
Yeah, all the action-packed scenes. I would say Sherlock Holmes, for the most part, is a cozy mystery.
They don't have action.
No. And what he does is, when you're done, you are shocked and surprised, but you don't feel blindsided, because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle gave you everything you needed to have solved it. You could have solved it yourself. I really feel like they could have done more. The whole dragging it out for most of the book that we didn't know the actual cause of death.
The mushroom. That was the most annoying red herring, because it wasn't actually set up. It was set up to be the false murder weapon. And we're sitting here going, is it? Really? We want to know the facts. Is it? We're sitting here going, is it? Tell us the real information. You can't just go, oh.
Also, maybe I am just not recalling. Or maybe I just wasn't satisfied with it. But I just don't feel like in the conclusion we got enough reasons why the death cap was gone out of the garden. And why it was actually in the soup. Or in the pantry.
The run through of, so it's possible. I'm sitting here going, how is him walking through the garden from his house with the wine, like, how does she get that he did that? Like, okay, I get his motive.
Mm-hmm.
I get his means.
Yep.
I don't understand how she got his execution.
I feel like the venom in the wine bottle was a genius way to kill him. But I feel like a better way to do it would have been to sneak into the wine cellar, put it in one of the wine bottles, and then just wait for it to be drunk.
Right.
You don't have to have an alibi at a thing. Maybe set up the death cap, sure, but like, in the end, it would have been a ticking time bomb of when he would drink it. I guess he was like under pressure because the queen was coming back and payday was, you know, he got the card, so he knew payday was happening. But like, he could have set it up where it was a ticking time bomb, where it didn't have to be him rushing from a party to go get the wine, to go put it in there. You like all of that.
No, he didn't need to go get the wine because he had the wine already.
Oh, true. True. But like,
That's the confusing part, because they're like, oh, we gotta go to the wine place and prove that it was him. I'm like, in that time, the wine seller is gonna go, oh, this guy bought it at this time.
yeah,
I'm sorry. That is so unrealistic.
it is.
But like, oh my gosh. And then, what's his name? Inspector.
Our inspector,
Yeah, that's an idiot. And then all of a sudden he's like intelligent. And
Godfrey
like,
Witherspoon.
Like, Witherspoon all of a sudden knew what he should be doing, and I'm sitting here going, and then he was like, I don't know. And
Yeah.
like, 5 seconds ago, you were like, I don't know, and then you were like, oh, yeah, this. I'm like, pick it up. Is he an idiot, or is he not?
Literally.
Okay? Because for him to be that intelligent, to put those little pieces together, he should be a lot better off. And oh my gosh, I'm so done with her.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe it's because you're so manipulative and conniving, and I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, this is so bad. I don't care if you're helping him. You know what? He shouldn't be in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I should let her talk.
Yeah.
I did think the timeline made sense for him to do it when he did, because with everybody that was overhearing that the mushrooms were in the garden, he had a lot of potential people to frame, because there was so many people in the garden and that all knew that the mushrooms were there. So it gave a lot of possible murderers. And so he had 3 days. So it was Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days to plan this murder. And it was premeditated, and he thought it through. He had an alibi, which is the most frustrating part, I feel like, because out of all of the suspects, he was the only one with an alibi. So he was off of all of our lists because he had alibis. Which, I don't remember if we ever actually talked to the alibis, but it was just basically, yeah, he has people over at his house until 2 o'clock, which was after the murder was committed. So we know it wasn't him. And then it was him because he snuck out and brought wine over to the neighbor. I mean, I know he lives in the neighborhood, but that really annoyed me, because I was just like, it was literally the only person we had for sure, like, okay, it couldn't have been him, he had an alibi, move on to the next suspect, there's so many other suspects to look at. And then it was him, which I guess was brilliant on his part, but also like really, really frustrating as a reader, because it was like surprising, and also like literally the whole entire case up until the last chapter didn't matter, because We didn't have the murder weapon. We didn't have anything until the very end. And it was like, oh, venom. Oh, it must have been the botany guy. Oh, he has snakes. Okay. Bing, bang, boom. All of a sudden they've like, oh, yeah, this makes perfect sense. I'm like, what? No, it really doesn't. Okay. So we're just going to completely throw out all the other chapters worth of information because it was really pointless. All of it. And then just be like, yep, it was him. All because it was snake venom. I don't know. I was not excited. I didn't like the end. And then I really, really hated that he offed himself right at the end. He's like, oh, yep, here's a letter saying that I confessed to the murder. And by the way, you're welcome. You don't have to prosecute and waste time because I just took my own poison. So, sayonara, I'll be gone in a few minutes, maybe an hour. Well, okay then. And we're just gonna have to go with that? Like, tie up all the loose ends and just throw it at him and be like, well, we're done. And then how the inspector, like, burns the black book so all of the evidence of blackmail is gone. What if something came up later and they needed that? I mean, I understand him not wanting the government or anyone to have possession of that, which sure, okay, whatever. It was trying to make him look good by him burning that, which I don't know. He's burning evidence, but whatever. We're just gonna look past that and be like, oh, it's morally okay because, well, whatever. I don't know. What else? There was something else. Oh, and the turning the blind eye to Joshua's stealing from his uncle, even though it was supposed to be his anyway, because, you know, he was supposed to inherit, and then his uncle blackmailed to inherit his stuff. So he's stealing from his uncle, but really in his mind he's justified because his uncle stole it from him first. And then we're just gonna be like, oh, it's fine. You know, it's all his now anyway, even though he tried to change his will right at the end there and you almost missed out, and then you would have been stealing from a hospital wing. But we're just gonna, like, let it go, I guess, because he got it badly because he blackmailed all those people into building his fortune. I don't know. He's benefiting off of his uncle's shadiness, and then we're just gonna let him get away with stealing because that's fine. I don't know. It was a little frustrating, and I'm kind of glad to be done with it. Like, okay, that whole book was really frustrating because it took so long to get any sort of details, and then when we got to the end, none of the details actually mattered until the very last chapter. Really crazy.
Yeah. I feel like I agree with the, oh, he was set up, okay. Plus, we suspected him because of how well he, you know, the questioning he went, was like, oh, yeah, yep, I gotcha. And then he's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good, because all the other ones were like, oh my gosh. So he's like, great, yay. And then, you know, yeah, we discounted him because we're like, dude, he has his own party. Like, people said, yeah, and then all of a sudden, you know, just later on after you find out all the details, oh, of course, I know, when they said Venom, I'm like, oh my gosh, now they're gonna stack the decks on, you know, these other suspects, and then they're like, oh, we're gonna hold off the murder weapon because it reveals who the murderer is, which I'm like, are you an idiot? Why did you use that venom? It pointed right to you. Oh, wait. Apparently you wanted to kill yourself. Because I'm pretty sure that was part of his plan too, if he got caught. Because, yeah. I'm like, okay, first of all, I suspected that he was a coward.
Yes.
Because he's the only one who survived. Yeah, that was suspicious.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I don't like that it was him. I don't. Because I feel like out of all... I feel like it wasn't enough of a...
No.
Like, yeah, it was a motive, but I don't feel like it was a deep enough motive to murder, you know? Like, revenge is always more, the emotion behind it, tied to it, the easier to get fed up and kill. He's been paying him who knows how long, which is probably information we would need to know of how long he's been paying off Dr. Slocum, Dr. Scumbag. And you're like, how does he have a good reputation? He literally he malpractices all the time. All the time. Like, there's no doctor confidentiality. There's not even a sense of loyalty between him and his customers. Like, this guy is horrible. How is word not getting around? Because he's blackmailing everyone? And so they keep silent about his scumbagness? Like, what?
Yeah. How does he have a practice?
How? I don't understand. And then, oh, whoa, Hightower didn't know the blackmailing, so his motive went out the window? I'm like, I don't know.
I don't buy that.
It doesn't make sense. It's not what the evidence has shown us. So now at the end you're like, oh, Hightower is innocent the whole time. Because he didn't know. And then, oh, of course, Mrs. Leslie would never have done it because she couldn't hurt a fly. And I'm like, really? Because we've had barely information about her. We've barely spoken to her. All we know about her is through her maid.
That and what she was potentially blackmailed with was killing her husband. So how is that not being able to hurt a fly?
Because the maid said she didn't do it. So, of course, she didn't do it.
That's why I was like, why are you burning it? Did he read any of them before he burned them? That's what I want to know. Because
yeah, he read hers. And then was like,
Mrs. Leslie's?
I don't know, he read a girl's.
I don't know. The vague and ambiguous way that they did that scene kind of irritated me as well.
Oh my gosh, it was just like, I don't want to go through the trouble of really wrapping this up, so we'll burn it.
Yeah.
I mean, he killed himself, so that's fine.
All the loose ends are neatly tied up. I hate to put it this way, but
I knew they're like, oh, and he took one swig down. I'm like, oh, he just poisoned himself. You guys are idiots.
I knew as soon as they showed up and they're like, oh, he's expecting you. I'm like, he's gonna kill himself.
He's done. Yep.
Yeah.
It was like she might have decided who the murderer was and the reason, and then she's like, but we gotta, distract from that. So we're gonna do this, and he's a blackmailer, so of course he's blackmailed other people. So we're gonna set up all that, and then we're gonna go, oh, my murder weapon is too obvious of who it is. So now we gotta go back and try to cover that up and make it less obvious. In a very annoying way.
Yeah.
I'm like, well. And now Mrs. whatever her face is,
Crookshanks.
Lily Bell.
She's like, I saw you all.
I saw you, now I want to hire you for this. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah, I was
You know what, lady? You were a suspect. Why should we trust you?
Plus, not to be judgy, but if I was watching them do all that and like all of this stuff, I wouldn't be overly impressed.
But think about the time and the
Of
fact that she's a
course.
woman and the fact that she's from America. Apparently, all those are Americans from that time that went back to England are, what do they call it? I don't know. Modern.
I don't know. I think Mrs. Jeffries is not as clever as she likes to think. And I just think that what they did is not overly extraordinary. It's what the police should have done. It's basically just legwork. It's police work on the ground, asking questions, having your ear to the ground, so to speak. And they failed. And so they're like, well, you're failing, so we'll have to do it. But there was nothing overly clever, in my personal opinion.
I mean, it doesn't have to be clever.
It doesn't have to be clever. But the fact that she seems to think she has a knack for it, and she doesn't have any problem saying that to herself, and other people are saying it to her, I'm like, I'm sorry, but no. You're not Sherlock Holmes, sweetie.
Well, no one is.
No one is. But, like, I feel like if you are giving yourself those kind of accolades, you best be able to back them up. That's all I'm saying. I definitely I liked the premise of it. I liked the idea of it. I did not like the execution. And I have to say, I'm giving this book like 2 stars. It's in my book. What about you?
Mrs. Jeffries annoyed me the entire time. And her manipulation and, like, false persona of, oh, you're so modest. Oh, you're wrong. So I gotta, how can I figure out, how do you, oh man, darn it, I must have guessed wrong. Cause I thought this, and then I'm just like,
oh, yes, Mrs. Jeffries, that's totally, like, all of that. I get that he is supposed to be as thick as molasses, but how can he not, at some level, see what's happening? Her manipulation and, I would say borderline gaslighting is not subtle or artful or crafty in any way.
She literally goes out of her way to ask him extremely detailed personal questions about cases, and he does not see it. And then, like I said, you painted him to be this moron. And then at the end, all of a sudden, when we are lost, he all of a sudden knows what he needs to do for 2 seconds, and then all of a sudden he doesn't know up from down. Like, I'm sorry. I don't like that. Okay? Like, maybe he became intelligent, but then you're like, oh, no. I gave him too much intelligence, but I'm not going to take it back. I'm just going to reverse that 5 seconds later. Maybe they didn't notice. Like, no. Figure out a different way. Change the way. I cannot believe that she remembered that he fired a housekeeper for going near a bookshelf. And so she's like, the black book must be there. I don't understand his plan. In my opinion, he was poorly executed. Even, like, oh, it's a great time. I'm going to leave my party, which maybe he had the party just for this reason. I don't think it's realistic for him to leave
his own party when he has people, a footman, he could send to get the wine.
And then he tells the footman, I'm going to get wine. And the footman's like, okay. And then when they question him, he's like, oh yeah, he was here. But, he stepped out to get some wine. And nobody heard about this until it was convenient at the end.
Did they not ask any of the guests any questions about, was he there? Was there ever a time he wasn't? Like,
did he step out of the room for 5 seconds? Apparently, it's incompetence all over.
Honestly.
I don't like it.
It's bad police
The
work.
whole time you're just like, you're an idiot and you're an idiot. This whole thing is not going nowhere.
Honestly.
So it wasn't entertaining at all. It didn't give me, I could solve it.
I think what upsets me the most is the potential this book had. I feel like what the author should have done is allow the inspector to not be dumb. Maybe not brilliant, but like, let's take Inspector Lestrade from Sherlock Holmes, because I clearly have a bias. But like, he's not a stupid man. He is a dedicated inspector who is willing to do the work, who works hard, but sometimes needs a little help. Like, there is nothing wrong with needing expert help.
Like, he at least should know protocol.
Yes.
Like, he's not an inspector because he woke up one day all of a sudden an inspector.
Yeah. And I feel like they should have set up Mrs. Jeffries to be a bit more of a Miss Marple, because I am, again, biased. Okay?
I think this
but
was
like,
her attempt at Miss Marple without actually being...
yeah. But I feel like it shouldn't have been her trying to be sly about it. Him just being like, you sometimes see things that I don't. Here's what I know. Is there anything I'm not seeing? Like that kind of a relationship. Because they've already established that he has a lot of respect and deference for her. So why would it be out of the realm of possibility that he would go to her?
Well,
if they set that up.
And also, their backstory of, I didn't feel comfortable, which we came up with first, was, I didn't feel comfortable with just you here and interrogating or questioning me, so I asked her to come. Mm-hmm. Like, first of all, you shouldn't go straight to her. You should go to her employer and then request it. But they're already there, so it works, but I'm just like, even your attempt at that was poorly executed, and you could have used that excuse a whole heck of a lot sooner. Mm-hmm. And he bought it in less than a second.
Oh, yes, that makes sense.
He did not question any of that. Yeah. Like, I think that they made her to be very clever and him to be an idiot. And it really did not suit either. And just made us all idiot. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like I actually gained any brain power from this. In fact, my brain hurts now. Thinking of all the stupidness.
Yeah.
I'm like...
Here, why don't we let Sarah go?
Yeah, okay. Is anyone else confused how he was apparently roaming around the house to poison the doctor, but didn't get caught by the butler or Joshua or the doctor? Like, how? There were 3 people in that house and he was expecting 1. I get Joshua was hiding and didn't want to be found and may have heard him, but it wasn't him. But, like, I don't know. I just feel like he should have... I don't know how he wasn't caught roaming around the house and in a hurry, too. So it's harder to be sneaky when you're in a hurry, I feel like. Look at me feeling. Anyway, I don't know. It was a very messy wrap-up. And, what else? I definitely think that the guests at the Colonel's party should have been interviewed. Even just to confirm that they were there and not just, like, claim that they were there, You kind of have to talk to the alibis because that's what they're for. And then somebody would notice that he wasn't at his own party for a little while. Like, 5 minutes is a lot. And even though, like, I mean, I know they kind of set it up where Mrs. Jeffries was walking through the garden and timing herself, and you weren't sure why during, but she was like, you know, apparently she got all the information she needed from slowly meandering through the gardens and figuring out how long it takes her to walk from one house to the next. And then she has the footman guy, who was it? I don't even know. Time themselves. Yeah, I don't know. It was a sloppy wrap up, and I didn't feel like, even though it was supposed to seem like he premeditated, it didn't make sense. Do the pieces fit together? Sure. If you ignore some of the previous information and just realize that it was poor detective work and all of the information was put together so poorly in the first place. Yeah. And the inspector was very dispassionate, I think, is the problem I had with him. Not maybe lack of intelligence, but just lack of passion for his job. And he just was always complaining. I felt like he wanted it to be over and was always just like, oh, I'm so frustrated. It was a horrible day, Mrs. Jeffries. I had to work. I had to talk to people, and I had to get clues, and I had to be an inspector guy and do my job, and it was so hard. And he's always just like, oh, and then she'll be like, oh, based on what you're just telling me about what you found out, you must know. Oh, you're so clever. Oh, this, you know, like, what? He seems to hate his job, and the only reason that he thinks he's good at it is because Mrs. Jeffries is constantly stroking his ego and being like, oh, you're so smart. Everyone else is like, okay, how did you get this job again? I don't know. He clearly was promoted because she helped him solve a murder that he wasn't even involved with, it sounded like. I don't know. I don't really even want to know the backstory with that. Like, you know, sometimes you're like, I would love to hear that side of the story, but I'm like, sounds like more meddling and pushing her own agenda. Yeah. She likes solving murders or mysteries. Like, even in the end, in the wrap-up, she was like so secretly trying to hide the fact that she was bored to death because the murder was solved, and making it seem like she thought that the other servants were bored because of it, even though it was like clearly her that was like stir crazy about it being over. I'm like, girl, you're a mess, and in the wrong line of work, apparently. And so was the inspector.
So yeah, that was another version of book club, just trying to mix it up and make it a little bit more interesting for us. Although we did get a little bit frustrated with the book, but that happens. Overall, I think I had a lot of fun. I hope they did too. We're actually going to be doing another one with my mom with this same format, so if you want to watch that, you can subscribe and hit the bell for notifications whenever I upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye!